But she returned after 10 years, claiming the cowboy as her destiny husband. The small ranch town rested quietly between long open fields and low hills that turned golden under the evening sun. Life there moved slowly, guided by seasons and hard work rather than noise or hurry. Parade. Most people woke early, knew their neighbors, and carried stories that stretched back many years. Among them lived a cowboy known for his calm nature and steady hands. He worked harder than most but spoke less than others, and people respected him for that. Every morning before sunrise, he walked out to the barn while the sky was still dark blue. The sound of boots against dirt and the soft breath of horses became part of the rhythm of the ranch. He moved with quiet focus, checking fences, feeding animals, and preparing for the day without complaint. The ranch had once belonged to his father, and after his father passed away, he carried the responsibility alone. It was not an easy life, but it gave him purpose.
Years earlier, he had been different. Back then, laughter came easily, and hope filled his voice when he spoke about the future.
People remembered seeing him ride through town with a young woman beside him, both smiling as if nothing could break their bond. She had arrived in town unexpectedly and quickly became known for her strong personality and bright energy. Unlike many who lived there their whole lives, she spoke about dreams beyond the horizon. Yet she also seemed to understand the quiet beauty of ranch life. Their connection had grown slowly, built on shared work and long conversations under open skies. The cowboy found comfort in her presence, and she seemed to admire his steady strength. For a time it looked as if they would build a life together. Then, one day, she disappeared. There were no long explanations, no final conversation, only a sudden absence that left him standing alone with questions he could not answer. Psst. Some townspeople whispered that she left to chase bigger dreams. Others believed family problems forced her to go. The cowboy never confirmed anything. He simply returned to work, burying his emotions beneath responsibility. 10 years passed. The ranch changed during that time. Broken fences were replaced. New barns were built, and the land slowly recovered from years of neglect. The cowboy became known as someone people could depend on. He helped neighbors repair equipment, guided young riders learning to handle horses, and quietly supported anyone who needed help. Still, he kept his personal life closed. When others spoke about relationships or future plans, he listened politely, but never shared his own thoughts. Evenings were often the hardest. After long days, he sat alone by the fire, listening to the wind outside. Memories sometimes returned without warning, laughter echoing in his mind, footsteps beside his, promises that never found their ending. He told himself those days were part of the past, something that belonged to another version of himself. The town organized small gatherings from time to time to bring people together. One evening, they held a celebration in the main square to mark the end of a successful harvest season. Lanterns hung across wooden beams, music played softly, and neighbors shared food and stories. The cowboy attended out of respect rather than excitement. He stood near the edge of the crowd, watching rather than joining fully. As the evening sun faded into soft orange light, a vehicle rolled slowly into town, drawing attention from several people. Visitors were rare and strangers often became the center of curiosity. The car stopped near the square, and a woman stepped out. At first, no one recognized her. Bah.
She carried herself with quiet confidence, her expression calm yet filled with emotion.
Bah. Time had changed her appearance slightly, adding maturity and strength to her presence. But when she lifted her gaze toward the crowd, a few older residents began to whisper. Recognition spread slowly like a ripple through water. The cowboy felt something shift inside him before he even looked directly at her. When his eyes finally met hers, The world seemed to grow silent. It was her. 10 years had passed, yet something familiar remained in the way she stood, in the way she watched him as if no time had truly separated them. The music continued, people moved around them, but for a moment everything felt distant. She walked toward him with steady steps. Each movement felt heavy with meaning, as though she carried years of untold stories. The cowboy's body remained still, but inside memories rose quickly, moments he thought he had buried forever. When she stopped in front of him, neither spoke immediately. The silence stretched between them, filled with questions and emotions that words could not easily explain. Finally, she spoke. Her voice was calm, but there was a deep sincerity behind it. She said she had returned after 10 years because she believed their story was not finished. She told him that in her heart she had always felt he was meant to be her destiny husband. The words surprised everyone nearby, but especially him. He stared at her, unsure whether to feel anger, confusion, or something softer that he did not want to acknowledge. He asked why she had come back now after so long. His tone was controlled but firm, revealing years of unanswered questions. She did not try to defend herself immediately. Desperation. Instead, she admitted that explaining everything would take time, and that she understood if he did not trust her. People around them pretended not to watch, yet curiosity filled the air. The cowboy felt uncomfortable being the center of attention, so he suggested they speak somewhere quieter. They walked away from the crowd toward the edge of town where open fields began. The evening breeze carried the smell of grass and distant rain. For a moment, neither knew how to begin. The distance of 10 years felt both enormous and fragile. She told him she had thought about returning many times, but had been afraid. Life had taken her through different places, forcing her to grow stronger and learn difficult lessons. He listened silently, arms crossed, protecting himself from hope. Part of him wanted to believe her, but another part remembered the sudden pain of her leaving without explanation.
He told her that he had built a life without expecting her to return.
He had learned to accept loneliness as a form of peace. Her sudden appearance threatened to change everything he had carefully rebuilt. She nodded, acknowledging his feelings without arguing.
Instead of asking for forgiveness immediately, she said she wanted a chance to show him who she had become.
She knew words alone would not be enough. The sky darkened slowly, stars appearing one by one. The cowboy felt torn between the past and the present. Standing before him was someone who had once meant everything, yet also someone who had caused deep hurt. Before they parted for the night, she repeated her belief that some connections survive distance and time. She was not asking for instant acceptance, only an opportunity to prove that she had returned for the right reasons. He watched her walk away toward a small guest house at the edge of town. Questions filled his mind long after she disappeared from sight. That night, sleep did not come easily. Memories mixed with uncertainty, and for the first time in years, the future felt unpredictable again. Far away, a storm began to gather on the horizon, its distant thunder echoing across the plains. A quiet reminder that change was coming whether he was ready or not. Morning arrived quietly over the ranch town, but the cowboy felt none of the usual peace that sunrise brought him. He had slept only a few hours, his thoughts circling endlessly around the woman who had returned after 10 long years. Normally, he began his day with clear focus, moving from one task to another without distraction. But today his mind wandered back to the past, again and again. The sky turned pale gold as he walked toward the barn. Horses moved slowly in their stalls, their soft movements grounding him in the present. He brushed one of the older horses gently, finding comfort in routine. Work had always been his way of thinking clearly. Best. Still, no matter how much he tried to concentrate, her words echoed in his mind. Destiny. Husband. He shook his head slightly, unsure whether to feel angry or curious. For years he had convinced himself that chapter of his life was closed. Now, everything felt uncertain again. Meanwhile, the woman woke early at the small guest house where she stayed. She watched the town through the window, feeling both familiar and strange at the same time. 10 years had changed everything. Some buildings looked older, some new, and people moved through the streets with the calm confidence of those who belonged. She wondered if she would ever truly belong again. Her decision to return had not been simple. Any nights she questioned whether she had the right to come back after leaving without explanation. Yet something deep inside told her that she needed to face the past instead of running from it. After breakfast, she walked slowly through town. A few people recognized her, greeting her with cautious smiles. Some were kind but curious, others reserved, unsure what her return meant. She accepted their reactions calmly, knowing trust would take time. When she reached the ranch, she paused at the gate. The land looked stronger than before. Fences repaired, fields organized, barns standing proud against the horizon. She felt a quiet respect for the work he had done alone.
The cowboy noticed her arrival but did not rush toward her. Instead, he finished feeding the animals before walking over.
The distance between them felt heavy, filled with unspoken memories. She greeted him gently, asking if she could help with anything. He hesitated for a moment, unsure whether to accept. Part of him wanted to keep her at a distance, but another part believed that refusing would only avoid necessary conversations. He handed her simple tasks, carrying tools, checking water supplies, helping organize feed. She worked without complaint, focusing on doing things correctly rather than trying to impress him. He watched carefully, noticing how she moved with confidence gained from years away.
During a short break, they sat near a wooden fence overlooking the fields.
Silence settled between them before she finally spoke about the past. She explained that when she had lived in the town years ago, she felt torn between two worlds. She loved the quiet life and the connection they shared, but she also carried dreams shaped by a restless desire to explore. At the time, family pressure and personal fear convinced her that staying would limit her future. Instead of talking openly, she chose to leave quickly, believing it would hurt less if she disappeared. As she spoke, regret filled her voice. She admitted that leaving without explanation had been her greatest mistake. She thought distance would make things easier, but instead it created a weight she carried everywhere. Cowboy listened carefully, his expression calm but guarded. Hearing her speak honestly softened something inside him, yet the memory of being left without closure remained strong. He told her that for years he had questioned what he had done wrong. Without answers, he blamed himself. She looked down, clearly affected by his words.
She said she never intended to cause that kind of pain. At the time, she believed she was protecting both of them from uncertainty.
Only later did she understand that avoiding difficult conversations created deeper wounds. The conversation paused as wind moved across the fields. Both realized how much time had passed since they last spoke honestly. Later in the day, unexpected challenges tested their ability to work together. A section of fence had been damaged by weather, and several animals wandered too close to open land. Without discussion, they moved together naturally, guiding the animals back and repairing the fence quickly. The shared effort reminded them of earlier years when cooperation came easily. As the afternoon continued, small moments of familiarity returned, brief smiles, quiet understanding without words. Yet beneath these moments lay hesitation. The cowboy reminded himself not to forget the past too quickly, while she tried to respect his emotional distance.
Breath.
News of her helping at the ranch spread through town. Some neighbors visited, curious to see how things were changing.
One older rancher encouraged the cowboy to give her a chance, saying people grow through experience. Another warned him gently not to reopen old wounds too soon. These mixed opinions added pressure to an already complex situation. The cowboy realized he needed to make decisions based on his own feelings rather than outside voices. As evening approached, clouds gathered, bringing cooler air. They finished work together and stood quietly near the barn bay. She thanked him for allowing her to help. He nodded but remained thoughtful. Before leaving, she said she understood that trust could not return overnight. She promised to show through actions that she had changed. Her tone was sincere, free from dramatic promises. After she walked away, he remained outside, watching the sky darken. Bez. For the first time since her return, he felt something different from anger. Curiosity about who she had become.
That night, he sat by the fire again, but instead of loneliness, he felt a mixture of emotions.
Pair. Memories of their past no longer felt frozen. They were beginning to move again, shaped by new conversations and shared work. Across town, she also struggled to sleep. Returning had been harder than she imagined, yet she felt relief at finally speaking honestly. She knew rebuilding trust would require patience, consistency, and respect for his pace. Outside, rain began to fall softly over the fields, washing dust from the land and creating a sense of renewal. Both lay awake in different places, thinking about the same question, whether two people separated by time could truly find their way back to each other. The rain that began during the night continued into the early morning, turning the dry earth into dark, rich soil. Clouds stretched across the sky, and a cool wind moved slowly over the ranch. The cowboy awoke before sunrise as usual, but his thoughts felt heavier than before. The woman's return had already started changing his routine, even though he tried to pretend nothing was different. He stepped outside, breathing in the fresh air mixed with the smell of rain. The ranch looked peaceful, but he knew storms often brought hidden problems. Fences weakened by weather, muddy paths and restless animals meant extra work. He welcomed the challenge because physical effort helped quiet his thoughts. As he reached the barn, he noticed her walking toward him from the gate. She carried a small bag and wore practical clothes suited for work. Without saying much, she joined him, ready to help. There was less awkwardness now compared to the first day, but a careful distance still remained between them. They worked side by side, checking the animals. One young horse seemed nervous from the storm, and she approached it slowly, speaking in a calm voice. The cowboy watched as the animal relaxed under her gentle handling. He realized she had learned many skills during her years away: patience, confidence, and a deeper understanding of responsibility. Later, they rode out together to inspect the far fields. The land stretched endlessly, green patches shining under the soft light breaking through clouds. Riding together felt strangely familiar, as if time had folded back on itself. Yet silence remained between them for long moments. Eventually, she spoke about her life after leaving. She described working in different towns, learning new trades and meeting people who shaped her understanding of the world. Some experiences were difficult, forcing her to grow stronger and rely on herself. She admitted that during those years she often compared others to the cowboy and realized that the connection she once had was rare. He listened quietly but avoided showing too much emotion. Part of him appreciated her honesty, but another part still protected old wounds. While checking a damaged fence line, they discovered several cattle missing. The storm must have frightened them enough to push through a weak section. Without hesitation, they began tracking the animals together. The search required focus and teamwork, forcing them to communicate clearly and trust each other's judgment. Hours passed as they followed signs across muddy ground. At one point she noticed hoof marks leading toward a narrow valley. Bah. He followed her lead, impressed by her sharp observation. Working together felt natural, reminding him of earlier days when cooperation required no effort. When they finally found the cattle gathered near a small stream, relief spread between them. Guiding the animals back took patience and coordination, but they moved like a well-practiced team. By the time they returned to the ranch, both were tired, yet satisfied. During a short break, they sat near the barn, sharing water and watching clouds slowly clear. Bess. She laughed softly about how messy they looked after hours in the mud. The cowboy found himself smiling without thinking. The moment felt light, almost normal. But normal also brought fear. He wondered if allowing himself to feel comfortable again might lead to pain later. In town, people began noticing the change between them. Some greeted her more warmly, now that they saw her working hard rather than simply returning with words. Others remained cautious, reminding the cowboy quietly to protect his heart. One afternoon, an older neighbor visited the ranch, bringing news that a nearby property faced financial trouble. The situation reminded the cowboy of his own struggles years earlier when he almost lost the ranch. The woman listened carefully and later suggested ideas she had learned from working in other places, ways to organize resources and build stronger community support.
Her suggestion surprised him.
She spoke with practical knowledge rather than unrealistic dreams. Slowly, he began seeing her not just as someone from his past, but as a partner capable of facing real challenges. As days passed, small routines formed. She arrived early, worked without complaint, and respected his decisions even when they disagreed. Bears. Instead of pushing for emotional closeness, she focused on earning trust through consistency. One evening, while repairing tools in the barn, a sudden accident occurred when a heavy beam shifted unexpectedly. Without thinking, she moved quickly to help stabilize it, preventing damage and possible injury. The moment was brief but intense, leaving both slightly shaken. Afterward, he thanked her sincerely, his voice softer than usual. That night they shared a simple meal outside under clear skies. Stars appeared bright after the storm, and the air felt fresh. Conversation flowed more easily now. They spoke about small memories, favorite places, old jokes, and moments from the past that still made them smile. Yet deeper questions remained unspoken. At one point she admitted that returning had been the hardest decision she ever made. She feared rejection but believed that running away again would only repeat old mistakes. He appreciated her honesty but admitted that trust would take time. She nodded, understanding without argument. Days later, another challenge arrived when a buyer canceled a large cattle order unexpectedly. Financial pressure threatened to undo months of hard work. Instead of reacting with panic, she helped him review options calmly, encouraging him to consider new strategies. Desperate, her steady support during stress surprised him and slowly changed his perception. The cowboy realized that the woman standing beside him now was stronger and more grounded than the young person who left years ago. Still, he hesitated to fully open his heart. The memory of being left without explanation remained a shadow he could not ignore. One afternoon, while watching the sunset together, he finally asked a question that had stayed inside him for years. He asked if she had ever regretted leaving immediately after she did it. She answered honestly, saying that at first she believed she made the right choice. But over time, regret grew stronger. Every new place she visited reminded her of what she lost. She said that returning was not about rewriting the past, but about facing it honestly and building something real if he allowed it. Her words stayed with him long after she left for the evening. Later, alone by the fire, he realized that his feelings were changing slowly. The anger that once protected him had softened into cautious curiosity. He still feared being hurt again, but he could not deny that working together had begun breaking down the walls he built around himself. Across town, she walked back to the guest house under a sky full of stars, feeling hopeful yet patient. Breath. She understood that rebuilding trust required more than effort. It required time, understanding, and acceptance of whatever future he chose. As another day ended, both felt that something important was shifting between them. Fast. The past no longer felt like an unmovable barrier. Instead, it became a shared story shaping the path ahead. The days following their growing partnership brought a quiet change to the ranch. Work felt lighter even when tasks were difficult. The cowboy noticed that he no longer felt alone during long hours in the fields. Still, he remained careful with his emotions, reminding himself that trust rebuilt slowly, step by step. Bird. Early one morning, a strong wind swept across the plains, carrying dust and signaling another change in weather. The sky looked restless, and he sensed challenges coming. Experience taught him that ranch life required constant readiness, and today felt no different. She arrived at the ranch as usual, greeting him with a calm smile.
Over time, their interactions had become more natural. Small conversations flowed easily, yet deeper emotions stayed just beneath the surface, waiting for the right moment to emerge.
That day, they worked on reinforcing a section of fencing near the far boundary of the property. The task required cooperation and patience.
While working, they shared stories from their past, not just memories of their time together, but also lessons learned during the years apart. She spoke about moments when she felt lost after leaving the town, unsure of where she truly belonged. She described working in unfamiliar places, meeting people who taught her resilience, and learning that running away from fear never solved problems. Each experience shaped her into someone stronger but also more aware of her mistakes. The cowboy listened closely. Hearing her speak openly helped him understand her journey more clearly. For years, he imagined different reasons for her leaving, many of them filled with self-doubt. Now he realized that her decision had come from confusion rather than lack of care.
As the afternoon passed, dark clouds gathered again.
Rain began suddenly, forcing them to take shelter inside an old wooden shed. The sound of rain hitting the roof created a quiet space where conversation felt easier. Inside the shelter, they faced each other without distractions. The moment felt heavier than usual, as if something important waited to be spoken.
He finally admitted that her return had stirred emotions he believed were long gone. He told her about the years of loneliness he experienced, the nights spent questioning what went wrong, and the slow process of rebuilding himself after she left.
She listened with full attention, her eyes filled with understanding rather than defensiveness. She apologized again, not expecting forgiveness but wanting him to know she accepted responsibility for the pain she caused. The conversation grew deeper, moving beyond surface-level explanations. They discussed trust, fear, and the challenge of letting someone close again after being hurt. He confessed that part of him still feared she might leave again without warning. She acknowledged that fear honestly, promising that she would never avoid difficult conversations again. Rain continued falling outside, creating a peaceful background to their emotional exchange. For the first time since her return, he allowed himself to speak openly without holding back. He told her that he had built walls around his heart not because he stopped caring, but because caring too deeply had once left him vulnerable. She responded gently, saying she did not expect him to tear down those walls quickly. She only hoped to stand beside him long enough for trust to grow naturally. The storm outside began to calm, and sunlight slowly returned. They stepped back into the open air, both feeling lighter after sharing truths they had carried for years. In the following days, a new challenge appeared. when news arrived that a large company wanted to buy several smaller ranches in the area, including parts of his land. The offer promised financial security but also threatened the quiet way of life he valued. The decision weighed heavily on him. She supported him without pushing her own opinion, encouraging him to think carefully about what truly mattered to him. Spring. Together they reviewed possibilities and discussed the future of the ranch. Her perspective helped him see options he had not considered before. The situation forced them to rely on each other emotionally as well as practically. Late nights were spent planning, talking, and reflecting. During these conversations, their bond grew stronger, built not on past memories, but on shared present challenges. One evening, while walking along the fields at sunset, he paused and looked at her differently. He realized that the woman standing beside him was no longer a reminder of loss but a symbol of growth, both hers and his. He admitted quietly that seeing her change through actions had begun to heal something inside him. She responded with gratitude but remained humble, reminding him that healing belonged to both of them. As weeks passed, small gestures replaced big promises. She prepared meals for workers during busy days, repaired equipment with determination, and listened when he spoke about worries he rarely shared with anyone else. The town also began accepting her presence more fully. People noticed the positive changes at the ranch and the calm way she interacted with everyone. Trust from others slowly followed. Still, one important conversation remained unfinished. Her statement about destiny, one evening under a sky filled with stars. He finally addressed it.
He told her that when she first said he was her destiny husband, the words felt overwhelming and unrealistic. He had spent years believing destiny was something people used to avoid responsibility. She smiled gently and explained that her idea of destiny had changed over time. To her, destiny no longer meant something fixed or magical. Instead, it meant recognizing a connection worth fighting for, even when life became complicated. Her explanation felt honest and grounded, free from dramatic expectations. He realized that her belief was less about fate and more about choice. In that moment, he felt a quiet shift inside himself. The past no longer felt like a heavy chain, but like a lesson that guided their future. As they stood together watching the stars, he reached a decision, not a final commitment, but a willingness to move forward without fear controlling him. He told her he was ready to continue rebuilding their connection, slowly, one day at a time. Her eyes reflected relief and gratitude, but she respected his cautious approach. They walked back toward the ranch side by side, sharing comfortable silence. That night, he sat by the fire once again, but instead of feeling alone, he felt calm. The future remained uncertain, but for the first time in many years, uncertainty felt hopeful rather than frightening. Across town, she lay awake, looking at the ceiling, smiling softly. She knew their journey was far from finished, but real progress had finally begun. The ranch entered a new season quietly, but the changes were clear to anyone who visited. The fields looked healthier, fences stood stronger, and a sense of calm filled the air.
Life continued with its usual rhythm, yet something deeper had shifted between the cowboy and the woman who returned after 10 years.
With steady work and shared responsibility. They moved together with growing understanding, no longer feeling like two separate people trying to reconnect, but like partners learning a new way forward. Their conversations became more open, filled with honesty rather than hesitation. The decision about selling part of the ranch still weighed heavily on the cowboy's mind. The offer promised financial relief, but accepting it meant changing the life he built with patience and effort. He spent long evenings thinking alone, watching the sky turn dark as stars appeared one by one. One evening, she joined him near the edge of the field, where tall grass moved gently with the wind. She did not give advice immediately. Instead, she listened as he spoke about his fears: fear of losing control over his future, fear of making the wrong decision, and fear of allowing change to erase memories connected to his father and his past. She reminded him that the ranch represented more than land. It represented his strength and resilience. At the same time, she encouraged him to consider whether holding on to everything out of fear might prevent growth. Her words were calm, not forceful. She understood that the final choice belonged to him alone. This respect for his independence deepened his trust in her even more. As the days moved forward, he realized that her presence no longer felt like a disruption, but like a natural part of his life. But the walls he built around himself had slowly softened without him noticing. Small moments, shared laughter during work, quiet meals under open skies, comfortable silence after long days, became signs of a deeper connection. The town also changed its attitude toward her. People who once watched from a distance began greeting her warmly. She helped neighbors when needed and joined community events without seeking attention. Through consistent actions, she showed that her return was not temporary. One afternoon, a local festival brought everyone together again in the town square, similar to the night she first returned. Music played softly, children ran between stalls, and lanterns decorated the space with warm light. The cowboy hesitated before attending, but she encouraged him gently, reminding him that life included moments of celebration as well as work. When they arrived together, many noticed the difference in their relationship. They walked side by side with ease, sharing smiles and quiet conversations. There was no need for dramatic gestures. Their connection showed naturally through small details. During the evening, an older neighbor spoke privately with the cowboy, saying that true strength sometimes meant allowing happiness to return. The words stayed with him long after the conversation ended. Later, as music played, she stood watching the crowd, her expression peaceful. He joined her and asked how she felt being back after so many years. She admitted that returning had been frightening but also necessary. Facing the past allowed her to understand who she truly was and what she wanted.
He looked at her thoughtfully, remembering the night she first said he was her destiny husband.
Breaths. At that time, the words felt overwhelming, almost impossible to accept. Now, they carried a different meaning. He realized that destiny was not about something written in advance, but about choices made with courage. She chose to return despite fear, and he chose to give her another chance despite pain. As the evening grew quiet, they walked away from the crowd toward the open fields outside town. The sky above them stretched endlessly, filled with stars shining brightly. He stopped walking and turned toward her, his expression calm but serious. He told her that during the past weeks he had thought deeply about their future. He admitted that he no longer felt trapped by the past. Instead, he felt ready to build something new, based on honesty and trust. She listened silently, her eyes reflecting both hope and patience. He explained that he did not believe in perfect endings or sudden promises. What he believed in now was steady effort and shared growth. He wanted to continue building a life with her, not because of old memories alone, but because of who they had both become. Her smile grew slowly, filled with relief and gratitude. She did not rush toward him or demand grand gestures. Instead, she accepted his words with quiet understanding. They stood together watching the horizon, feeling a sense of peace that came from mutual respect rather than excitement alone. For both of them, love now felt deeper and more grounded. In the following weeks, the cowboy made his decision about the ranch. Instead of selling large portions, he chose a balanced path that allowed financial stability while preserving the heart of the land. She supported his choice fully, proud of his courage to shape his own future. Life continued with challenges and successes, but they faced everything together. Some days were difficult, filled with hard work and unexpected problems. Other days brought simple joy, shared meals, laughter during small mistakes, and quiet evenings under wide skies. Bass. Over time, the idea of destiny transformed into something real and steady. It was not about dramatic declarations, but about choosing each other daily, through effort and understanding. The town watched their journey with warmth, seeing two people shaped by time and experience learning to trust again. Their story became a reminder that second chances could lead to deeper connections when both people were willing to grow. One evening, as the sun set over the fields, he took her hand gently while they walked along the fence line they once repaired together. The moment felt natural, without pressure or expectation. He realized that the loneliness he once accepted as permanent had faded quietly, replaced by companionship built on honesty. Bess. She felt the same calm certainty, not the excitement of a new beginning alone, but the strength of a relationship tested by time and rebuilt through patience. As night fell, the ranch lights glowed softly against the dark sky, symbolizing a new chapter shaped by forgiveness, resilience, and shared hope. Their story did not end with a dramatic final moment. Instead, it continued forward, like the land itself, steady, real, and full of possibility.